Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to this Wednesday, June 3rd briefing. Thanks so much for everyone being here on this beautiful day. Not a whole lot to add. We can, or to talk about. We can go through some of the numbers we have here. We're up 24 to 2,212 today on confirmed cases, and we're holding at 84 deaths, which is something that we look at every day to, and hope that there's not more deaths related to this. We've gone 3 days now without a death, which is terrific. We've got 46 folks hospitalized to date, and in the ICU, we've got 52% of the ICU beds in use, but only 11 of those are by COVID-19 patients. We've reached over now 37,000 tests in the county. Our positivity percentage is dropping to 5.9. We hope to continue to see that drop over time here. The average turnaround time is roughly staying the same at about 1.7 days, which is good. We hope to get that turnaround quicker. In regard to the guests that we have, we've got 0 at the event center, which is the first time in a long time, which is terrific. At the Burlingame station, not the Burlingame hotel, we've got 2 guests. At the Bayfront station, we've got 90 guests. We're essentially, for all practical purposes, we're full there. And then we've got 86 guests at other various hotels for 176 individuals in hotel rooms right now. A couple things on testing, and I know that you've had some questions that we'll get to on contact tracing, but we now have some more information. The highest testing date that we've had to date was May 18th at 1,380. Certainly that exceeds the state requirement. I think it was 1,170 or 1,173 or something like that. Doesn't quite reach the health officers in the Bay Area. Their number at 15 something, Sarija.
1532.
1532, kind of an odd number, but that's what it is. But not quite there, but certainly well within the state region on that highest date. And we hope to be able to get there on a regular daily basis. So planning to rotate to North Fair Oaks later this week. I believe that is Friday, Saturday, I believe, for the rotation to North Fair Oaks, which is terrific. We're in Half Moon Bay today for the first time, which is great. The testing in Pescadero went very well over the weekend, I'm told. Puente did a great job. I think we had 90 tests or so, and we'll be back there in a couple weeks or so to do more testing on an ad, and then go back as needed there. But we want to rotate to some of the other areas of the county to make sure that there's equitable distribution of access to the free testing. San Mateo County is in the top quarter of counties when it comes to getting testing out to the community, which is good to hear. We want to improve upon that, though. SMC has unfortunately, SMC has the 8th highest case rate in the state. So 8th highest case rate in the state, and the 2nd highest case rate in the Bay Area at 52.7 cases per 100K. That puts us way higher than San Francisco, way higher than Santa Clara per 100,000 residents. That rate is at 138.1. So that's the 2nd highest in the Bay Area. And Sarita, do you happen to know who the highest in the Bay Area is?
I believe Marin is slightly ahead of us.
Okay, great, thank you. Some questions about the curfew, why we put it in effect, and it was really a culmination of many different things. We had certainly a protest planned here in Redwood City, which we absolutely welcome. Welcome every resident to go out to. We got another one in East Palo Alto and San Mateo today. We hope people will go out to those and certainly espouse their views and call for change and all those things that we hope occur at peaceful protests, and we encourage peaceful protests. And do we think that we certainly understand the value in that also. But we had specific information about some gang looting that was being planned. We had social media posts calling for violence, calling for widespread looting in the county that was circulating. We had information that in the past that gangs from outside the region, Stockton and beyond, were using these peaceful protests to create havoc and violence and looting, and really using it as an opportunity to steal things. Given what our small businesses have been through with the shelter in place, and with the fact that we have had some looting in the county, some break-ins in the county, we felt the fact that all the other Bay Area counties had a curfew, to a lesser extent Santa Clara County, which had the city of San Jose and the city of Santa Clara on a curfew, and some information that people felt that we might be the path of least resistance to come here since we didn't have a curfew. The fact that law enforcement was stretched thin throughout the region, and certainly if there was widespread protest or looting here, we would not be able to call for outside resources since they were taking care of their own in very unusual circumstances, kind of everyone doing their own thing at the same time, almost akin to but certainly different, everyone looking for the same mass at the same time. You were on your own, is the point. Given that, we felt that law enforcement needed another tool to have, to utilize. We also felt that there's certainly an opportunity for protests to go beyond the 8:30. And again, that's the discretion of the officers on the scene, the commander on the scene. If it was peaceful, that's their call. There's no mandate that it stopped. I mean, the situation are different everywhere, and they certainly have the ability to let peaceful protests continue. So it's in no way an attempt to disturb that protest, limit that protest, whatever it may be, but really an attempt to make sure that those people, those agitators from the outside, those radical groups from the outside, those individuals who want to come in and use this peaceful event to hijack it for their own purposes of violence and destruction and looting, did not have that opportunity. So again, it was a tool for police to use. We applaud all the folks last night here who were peaceful, demonstrated they had their voice heard in the appropriate manner that we would expect anyone to avail themselves of the First Amendment and utilize their civil liberties in a way that is productive, and making sure that you draw people together and not separate them by violence or victimize innocent people who were just trying to make a living, like we've seen throughout this region, throughout this state, and throughout this country in the past week or so. So with that, I just wanted to answer that question because that had come up as one of the questions here. Health had questions. Number one, where's the county on getting the contact tracer goal of 115? Ms. Regent, you want to take that?
Sure. So I would also just point folks to the May 19th Board of Supervisors meeting when Health Chief Louise Rogers outlined the plan, if you want her version and the details in a PowerPoint that was presented to the board. We have 30 FTEs dedicated to contact investigation and tracing today, and that allows us to address around 60 new cases per day. And we have a two-phase plan to get to the surge capacity that's necessary to identify up to 150 FTEs so that we could have 115, which would meet the metrics for the sufficient level of contact investigators to be able to handle up to 230 new cases per day. And our plan to get there involves identifying 45 in a first phase by July 1st and an additional 40 in a second phase to be determined as we look at the case growth.
Great. And how many, so I think you addressed this one, how many contact tracers we have right now? You said 30,
Correct.
Okay, and then how many contacts have they pursued, do you know?
So every positive case that you would see on our dashboard, which Mike has been reporting about, is contacted. And we've been able to maintain that as the case growth has grown, and to try to assure the safe protection of every positive case and everybody they've been in close contact with.
Great. And so I think you handle the next one. Can you describe the work the contact tracers do? They are busy contacting people. And so every positive case, they are questioning and following up on who they've been in contact with. And how successful has that been?
Well, we're still at it. So we have a lot of humility about it, but contact tracing is a core public health activity, and we use it in 87 diseases that are reported to local public health. And we've been really grateful that we have a lot of trust from the residents we're in contact with. They're often pretty grateful to have received contact from us and want to understand what do they need to do to maximally protect themselves, protect their loved ones, assure safety all around. So what you're seeing in the case growth includes a reflection of the engagement and trust with the people who are positive, who our team has been able to be in touch with and to guide so that they can prevent any unnecessary spread. The goal of the contact tracing is to break the transmission chain so that the spread of the disease can be controlled.
Great, thank you. So that is all we have. Let's see if there's any questions from the group.
We'll just give it a moment. There are no questions at this time and no raised hands at this time. Oh, we have one raised hand here. Henrietta Burrows?
Yes.
How are you?
Thank you. I am fine. How are you?
Good, thank you.
That's good. I'd like to go back to a question I had posed last week in terms of nursing homes. And the question related to the fact that Governor Newsom had been petitioned by nursing home groups to sign an executive order that would grant them blanket immunity from all civil and criminal prosecution for the duration of the pandemic. And it would grant them immunity not only for injuries or deaths resulting from the coronavirus, but for all claims of elder abuse. Is this something that the county would support?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to, it would really be the Board of Supervisors that would support that, and I don't want to speak for them, but I mean, it really is a state issue. It doesn't necessarily impact us other than these residents are here, and we want to make sure that they get the best care possible. But I'm not familiar with that legislation, the proposed legislation. So, Rija, I don't know if you are.
Really, the regulatory responsibility with nursing homes is at the state level. So we're certainly a partner to nursing homes and want to assure the safe protection of our residents, but issues of their legal liability and the regulatory framework under which they operate really is at the state level.
For another, just in following up, is there any required testing of new patients when they're admitted into nursing homes?
The state, so this is also under their regulatory authority, issued an all facilities letter requiring every nursing home to file a plan by June 1st, which was Monday, about their capacity to keep all residents safe and keeping their staff safe, which included recommendations about testing. I believe the recommendations involved serial testing on an every 1 to 2 week basis. I don't believe they touched on new residents. Nursing homes definitely have responsibilities for assuring the safety of any new admission and knowing about the health status of all of their residents. And we could certainly get you a copy of the all facilities letter if that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Now, one more question about the protests. And you mentioned that the police found information showing that the protesters were coming from out of the area. Was there any more information found out about them? For example, were they connected with Antifa? Or might they have been connected with white supremacists who are trying to stir up trouble and blame the protesters?
Yeah, right. So, and I wasn't, and to make it clear that I wasn't talking about yesterday's protest in Redwood City, but past protests. I think Oakland found most of the folks coming in, or a large majority of the folks coming in, were from out of the area, not from Oakland, not from Alameda County, but more from the Central Valley. And certainly many of them were organized gangs, really bent on looting and committing theft, under the cover of a peaceful protest. So that's what I was referring to when we were talked about getting some of this information from other agencies that had gone through this, and the fact that we were one of the counties not with a curfew made us a potential target for that. So I really have no information on who showed up yesterday, where they were from, or anything like that, other than they were, for the most part, very peaceful.
Well, the past information that you have in terms of past protesters and the gangs coming from, let's say, the Central Valley, were there any type of political influences involved in the gangs themselves?
That I do not know. So I don't know specifically who they were affiliated with or how they were affiliated. Anything else?
Well, I'm just thinking, if they were recognized as gangs, have there been any follow-up, as far as you know, in terms of keeping tabs on what they're doing and seeing that the members are arrested to avoid further similar situations?
Yeah, I think that certainly there'll be many investigations coming out of this, and I think you're correct to assume that some of these investigations will be ongoing and result in arrest. I mean, the interesting thing about this, and you see it certainly in some other larger protests, are the wearing of face coverings. Here we're requiring face coverings because of COVID-19, but certainly they do act to hide the identity of individuals, making it more difficult to identify who they are and what their affiliation might be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
A question from Emily.
Okay, Emily.
Mike,
how
how are you?
Good.
I'm doing all right. I'll just continue with, I think I had 2 questions about curfew and protests, and then 2 about COVID stuff.
Sure.
So one was, do you think there's any possibility of you pushing the curfew out past, I believe Thursday morning?
I have absolutely no plans of doing that.
Okay.
If we have another peaceful night, my intent is to just let it expire.
And then, are you aware of many, if any, arrests happening yesterday? Or I'll ask folks over at Redwood City, but
Yeah, I think that the chief just reported out they had, I think, 1 arrest.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And then it sounded like there are 30 contact tracers already. And were those folks already employed by the health department, since it sounds like there are quite a few viruses, diseases that are already being traced?
Before COVID-19 hit our horizon, we had 8 individuals doing this work. So we've had others from health and other departments mobilized to augment that workforce from 8 to 30. And that gives us the capacity for about up to 60 new cases per day.
And how many cases per day we're seeing on average? It's like,
Well, so today I think it was up 24.
Yeah.
The last few days we've gotten closer to the 60 recently. So the 30 are quite busy, working towards the first phase of augmentation.
Great. And then my last question, you mentioned I had internet problems while you were talking about North Fair Oaks. So does this mean East Palo Alto will no longer have regular Friday, Saturday testing?
Oh, we'll be switching it. So we'll be back there, but we'll kind of rotate back and forth like we will with, the coast. And this week, I think it's a rotation. Half Moon Bay took Daly City's slot, and then we'll be back in Daly City next week. And then North Fair Oaks takes East Palo Alto slot, and then we'll be back in East Palo Alto after that. So we're just smaller geographic areas.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Mike.
Okay, Emily, thank you.
And we have one question in the chat regarding the protests. Going into the demonstrations in San Mateo and East Palo Alto today, do those same concerns regarding outside gangs and outside agitators seizing the opportunity to cause havoc still exist? And if they do exist to the same degree, and if they do they exist to the same degree they did for the rally in Redwood City?
You know, I mean, I think that we don't have specific information. You know, the Redwood City one was more specific as to what was going to go on there. We have less specific information about Daly City and East Palo Alto, other than, you know, obviously there's still protests going on in the Bay Area. There's still curfews going on in the Bay Area. There is the potential when you get, you know, any of these large demonstrations to have people come over from other jurisdictions, which maybe they would be more recognizable in or noticed in, and try to hijack these type of demonstrations. But to answer your question, we don't have the specific information today that we did yesterday.
Another follow-up question, do the curfews apply to folks who are going out for a walk or getting fresh air in their neighborhood?
Well, theoretically, it applies to everyone, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who is going to stop those people and you know, take action. I mean, theoretically, it does apply to everyone. Businesses can remain open, though. We want to make sure that we didn't, you know, apply this to businesses. They can remain open. It's a tool that can be used or not used by law enforcement. If they see problems arising or things are getting dangerous in a protest, they can certainly utilize it. They don't have to. They have wide discretion, just like they do in any other enforcement of any other crime.
And it looks like that is all the questions we have at this time.
Great. Thank you so much. Everyone take care, stay healthy, and we'll see you back here. I'm not sure if we'll do Friday this week. We'll send something out. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.